Hello, my name's Lars Hyland. I'm the MD and CLO at Totara, and this session is all about learning with impact. So I'm going to take you through some thinking around designing effective learning and development experiences that genuinely align to business goals themselves, which is critically important in this rapidly changing world we live in. Indeed, exponential change, which I think we're all feeling now on a daily basis, is now eating L&D activities, and as it is in many other functions across an organization. And so we do need to be much more vigilant about how we go about our professional business when it comes to designing learning. And it does make a significant shift in emphasis as to what we focus on. So all of the talk around generative AI is making a tremendous difference to the pace at which people are gaining valuable experience, being able to perform in their roles and their jobs. Here's one a study that I found, which is from MIT and Stanford, that really points to the pace at which new technology is now impacting people. So their estimates, based on their research, has been that workers will gain 6 months of experience in only 2 months, which is a tremendous rate of improvement. And in fact, the role of generative AI systems is affecting office roles primarily, but it's also taking making an impact into frontline activity too. But the measure here was that productivity was gained by 14%, and that the bar of lower performance has risen quite significantly. So it's bringing people up to speed, literally, at a faster pace. So that also has an effect on high performing workers who can actually share their valuable knowledge and skills more readily, and that's amplified through the use of these smarter systems and tools. So there's a big impact here that's just rippling right the way through our industry, and it's really critical that us as learning professionals can adapt in similar fashion. So the real challenge, though, irrespective of these tools, still remains, which is, when we do spend our budgets, much of it is it's very unclear as to where that lands and what value that brings to the organization and the people that we are attempting to support. So up to 70% of L&D spending is wasted, and this cost does compound each year. We spend it in the wrong ways, arguably. And the effect of accelerating change, that rate of change, is really driving that, and all sectors are hugely affected, no matter which part of the world you're operating in and the size and nature of your business. It means that no one's really winning. 70% of employees, when asked, don't have mastery of the skills they need to do their jobs. They don't feel like they're actually on top of what they need to be able to do to contribute in a positive way to their organization on a continued, sustained basis. So the need for developmental support and skills development is only growing. Likewise, for managers, 70% of managers are dissatisfied with the support they get from L&D. You may well have experienced that directly in your own organizations, where much of that dissatisfaction is probably misplaced, but it is down to not seeing tangible gains or tangible outcomes rippling through into the performance of their teams, and therefore the outcomes and objectives that they're trying to reach. So those outcomes, well, traditional approaches are not really working. They haven't worked for many years. And it's not really just about the traditional learning platforms themselves not connecting with learning and business organizational objectives. It's an emphasis, or an overemphasis, shall we say, on content that may be frankly delivered by the wrong people, training the wrong people in the wrong way and on the wrong things at the wrong time. So with all of those wrongs, they don't make a right. And indeed, the result is no real business impact. We do need to change that dramatically. Otherwise, the role of L&D does become questionable. So how do we break out of this downward L&D cycle? We need to avoid getting continually caught in the question of, where is the ROI? We need a good answer to that. We don't have that presently. We are constantly facing a challenge to the budgets that are allocated, depending on the business health of the organization. And let's be clear, that challenge is on an ongoing basis. It's not just annual. It's going to be on a monthly or quarterly basis that change in business performance is going to result in change in the organization itself and the people priorities that you have. So it's important to have really clear outcomes. Otherwise, it's very easy to challenge. Same's true with designing one size fits all. One size does not fit all, it fits no one. So if we're stuck with learning activities that are sheep dip, putting people through experiences that really they don't see the point of, and that's put through poor communication, but they may see no value in, well, it's very unlikely to translate into real behavior change back into their own organization and teams. A lot of it, of our L&D activity is centering around meeting regulatory requirements and compliance, and that's seen as a cost. It's not seen as an investment in reducing business risk or improving performance, and that's a real critical perceptual shift that us as learning professionals really need to attempt to address. We do end up chasing the talent market if we're not supporting people effectively, and it becomes expensive to replace because retention is too high. It's painful. It disrupts your culture, and you'll lose talented people to your competitors who are doing this better. Likewise, your choice of technology and infrastructure that you have needs to be flexible. It needs to be adaptable to this new environment. And if it isn't, you'll find yourself in vendor jail. You're stuck with contracts commercially and also feature sets that just don't fit your business requirements. And because those business requirements will continue to evolve on a monthly basis these days. So what we want to do is move towards a model of constant adaptation, and that's really our new reality. So what does that mean? That means designing experiences that include a mix of different methods and activities, that they are personalized to the individual's needs and context and expectation. It is a more challenging design activity, but it's crucial to ensuring that learning and development is going to be effective in shaping the performance and productivity of your people. It's critical that we're measuring performance outcomes. It's critical that we shift the perception of L&D from being a cost center to being a business driver of positive change. And when we see that happening, you do see that out there in organizations who have really put people and people development and learning at the heart of their organization people strategy, then it is having an impressive impact on their ability to compete in a very changing environment. And that's characterized by a culture that offers immediate feedback. It's about clarity in the goals and objectives that people are chasing and following, and these are changing on a regular basis. So it's helping people adapt to that change in requirement, change in a direction, pivoting where they have to, because that will lead to higher performance, better well-being as well. People will be more comfortable with that type of environment and being much more productive as a result. So with measurable results, you get rising credibility, and that's really critical as learning professionals and in supporting our people, that credibility will be translated into support by leadership, and that support by leadership really comes from offering clear return on investment on the activities that you're doing that are in line with the business objectives that they have. And this will in time lead to higher reinvestment and support for those activities. All of this means that we are achieving a goal, which I think we'd all agree on. We want to empower people to do their best work, and to do that requires better understanding of individual needs. It requires a fresh alignment, I think, around how we support people, and really addressing some home truths, elephants in the room about what we're doing now and why we need to change them much more fundamentally. So let me take you back just a few months to Twitter being taken over by Elon Musk. I'm sure we're all aware of that. It feels like old news, but it's still rolling on. And so it's worth reflecting back, I think, to the moment when the transaction went through and Elon Musk took over. He tweeted and shared essentially the notification he received from the Twitter learning management platform that was suggesting that he had 30 days to do his mandatory Managing at Twitter 101 course. And at the time, he rather sarcastically responded that, well, I've got 30 days to do this, and I've got 30 days to learn this priceless information. Can't wait for Management 201. Now, at the time, that sarcasm may have landed for a few seconds, but as we can see, his activities and his ability to manage Twitter through huge amounts of change is at best put highly controversial. So there's a lot of people issues there and lessons both that will come from this as going forward. But the lesson I want to take from this is that these notifications that come through are what we are. That's really our front of face to our people and how we are perceived as an HR function and as an L&D support function as well. If those suggestions, those notifications, nudges are not meaningful and timely and contextual and not overwhelming, then we have a chance of effecting some real change. If, however, which is I think the norm still, our inboxes are overwhelming. There's too much notification. It isn't personalized really to me. And if it is, it's in competition with a multitude of other notifications from other parts of the business, even within the HR function. The HR function itself, in a well-intentioned way, ends up self-defeating its activities. And that's because it's uncoordinated messaging. It has the opposite effect, is not intended, but effectively we're training people to ignore us. And as we know, mental health, well-being, working at a distance, the pressures in the workplace are only growing and higher, and we see evidence that people feel that pressure really tangibly, and it can cause actual harm. It's not trivial, but in the main, what we're doing is most people just ignore it, and all of that good effort and well-intentioned investment just goes by the wayside as a result. We don't achieve the desired behavior changes and performance improvements that we're looking for. Now, why is this? It's because we have siloed structures in organizations, particularly once you reach a certain size. It can be as small as 500 people, but certainly when you have thousands of employees spread around the world, then you will have separate teams in HR, and those separate teams will be competing for the attention of the same people, all with the intent of providing good support. But actually, the result is a workplace experience that becomes increasingly frustrating, obstructive, rather than supportive. How do we change that? And how do we get towards, and how do we describe an environment that is much more effective at delivering what the business needs, what our teams need, and what the individual needs to really, really thrive in their role? Well, to build what we call at Totara a unified talent experience, we think that this cycle that you see here should be positively supported at all stages. Now, what that means is that if you have people in their role, they should feel like they have the right resources in their hands. They know how to use those resources. They know where they are. They know how to use those tools to do their job and to do that effectively. That when they are operating in their role, they're getting frequent feedback, both praise, constructive feedback, and recognition for their work. That they're very clear about the goals they're operating to. They know what to do, and that translates from the company goals down to the team or department team, and then down to the individual. That in meeting those goals, there are supportive recognition of where there may be some gaps, some upskilling required or new skills to be developed, that they have the opportunity to to really improve their mastery in what their role is, and be able to also expand into with new skills into new types of projects that they can operate with. And that the culture of management is much more around coaching and mentoring people. So it's less directive in that sense. There's more opportunity for people to contribute, challenge, feel safe in doing so, because that way we lead towards a much more innovative, motivated, and cohesive team environment. And when we have cohesive teams, motivated people, we have better performance, we have productivity, and we have outcomes, and we have more adaptability as well. So if we can say yes to all of those things, which I would argue many organizations can't currently, but should aspire to, then we're in a far stronger place to be able to operate in this world that we live in, and to be able to move our sort of perceived culture and operation to this virtuous talent cycle. So when we bring people into the business, they feel aligned, they get development and training, they can perform demonstrably in their role, and that we provide growth and advancement for them. And as a result, they stay with us and continue to contribute ever strongly into the organization, as opposed to onboarding people into the organization, not providing any support, and ultimately they're disengaged, not aligned, and exit. So it is possible to pull people out of this cycle and bring people up back into this virtuous talent cycle and bring them into a place where they can really thrive well in the organization going forward. Now, I'd recommend everybody on this session to take a closer look at this book. I'm recommending it to everyone I meet pretty much, but The Exponential Age is a really good summary of what's going on in the world right now. It was written last year in 2022. Things are moving at an exponential rate. That means it's getting faster and faster. The current estimate is that this exponential period will last 2 years, which, if you actually think about it, that's, on the first glance, that feels not long, but actually, if it's exponential change, that means at the end of those 2 years, things will be virtually unrecognizable, arguably. So we need to be understanding the mechanisms here, and it's not just the technology aspects, which many of us are familiar with. It's the impact it has on society around us, government, the economic shifts that means, and infrastructural shifts that this has an impact on. It is unprecedented, and we're living in it now. So as we go past this knee bend here on this cycle, on this curve, it's only going to get more and more of a rapid ride. And we're seeing it already. You know, jobs are changing. Just the last period at the beginning of this year, the role of an AI prompter, which I've been talking about for a little while, is now a real role. You know, so being able to go in and use these generative AI tools smartly and to deliver superior results is now a skill in its own right, and that's a role that people are really walking into now. More and more demand is there for those people who can really drive those tools effectively. Equally, the role of an influencer, you know, that's something that's been a job role now for a while. People desire to make money from that as a role, but you know, the reality now is that an influencer can be completely artificially generated, both visually, video, everything they say, do, where they move in a virtual environment can be fully controlled by a brand that wants an influencer type of presence. So, you know, that type of new job role is already feeling like it's under threat from technology and technological change. Likewise, the legal profession, likewise, software development itself is under extreme pressure to change significantly, and is this year we're seeing that change at an exponential pace. So all of this means is that the nature and way in which we operate as businesses, as organizations, at all scales, needs to be much more adaptable. And it means being less like a classical orchestra where you're following a score to the note, and instead you are empowered and skilled and comfortable with improvising and being innovative and adaptable, and yet staying in sync. And that's the mode of operation that's going to become more and more dominant as we move through this exponential age. It means that as organizations, we need to be skills based. We need to be focused on fluid structures and supporting fluid structures. It's about the skills rather than actual job roles, which may be dating much too quickly now. So we want to be able to identify skills that our people have, support and build those skills so that they become more flexible in their ability to move on to work that needs to be done at the time it arrives. And it's a much more fluid type of environment. And it means that the infrastructure that you're operating with, the HR technology infrastructure, becomes a strategic enabler for the organization now, because that allocation of work, that identification of skills and expertise and building of that expertise is what's going to be of critical difference going forward. So to delivering on that unified talent experience that we know now is essential. So these skills-based organizations are far more likely to place their talent more effectively. They're going to retain high performers more. They're going to be able to anticipate change, and that means responding efficiently and effectively to what's going on around them. We already see many organizations just being slow off the mark, and when it doesn't have to be that slow, a few months now, and it can make a critical difference to their success. So being able to sustain a positive workforce experience is what will keep talent with you and will keep you performing at a competitive level and maintaining a reputation as a place to grow and develop. That leads to a more inclusive environment, a more diverse environment where you're drawing on a diversity of thinking and experience that will lead to more innovation, and it will lead to that adaptability and that resilience in the face of this rapid change. Now, what we've done here at Totara is to draw all of those elements together that will deliver that unified talent experience. And it's underpinned by real research around what motivates people at work. And that is a sense of purpose, a sense of autonomy, and a sense of mastery. Essentially, are you clear about the goals and the purpose of the organization? How does that fit with your own personal sense of purpose? If they're aligned, you're going to be motivated. What's the environment like to actually get your work done? Are you allowed to get on with it? Are you given the space to challenge, to support and offer new ideas and have them adopted and tried? That autonomy to really exercise your skills is really critical to staying motivated for the longer term. And fundamentally, mastery of the skills that you have and applying them in a real world context alongside your and supporting your team members around you. And that's absolutely critical to feeling well supported by the organization, by the team, by your manager, and all of the stakeholders in ensuring that an organization functions extremely positively. So those core elements, I mean, they naturally align to supporting learning, access to learning, engaging and collaborating with others. And it's also about performance, managing performance, feedback, and being able to develop that coach-mentor culture, which is really the new glue that drives organizations going forward. And you need tools available to you that will join the dots here, that will bring all of those elements together meaningfully. And that's something we've done at Totara to really try and bridge that gap to rapid skills development. So bringing together the learning management, the performance management, and the collaborative elements together. It's really critical to be able to support them well. And those of you schooled in learning design will recognize that this really maps well into action learning principles. And if we think carefully about it, action learning is now really the dominant, or should be the dominant mode of thinking about how we deliver all learning experiences going forward, because they do by design attach themselves to real business needs and business outcomes and will get you towards the ROI evidence and data that you want to be able to report into the organization and the leadership teams. So the Total Talent Experience platform, therefore, is well positioned to deliver this and support organizations through what is quite a dramatic a change period. It's about supporting the breaking down of those internal silos as they currently stand, giving everyone a place to be able to be much more coordinated in how they support and deliver the initiatives to people, so that the end experience for any one individual person is personalized to them. It's sensitive to the context that they're in, and that therefore they're going to value that experience and support that you're offering. They're going to actually genuinely look forward to receiving those elements of support. I mean, that's a key measure here, is that they're not just passing by. There is genuine action taken as a result of the support you're offering. That does lead to being on that virtuous talent cycle, and it really does lead to a collective response to the exponential age that we're operating in, being adaptable and meeting changing needs on a consistent and sustained basis. So as a result, Totara has been actively providing this for over 2 years now, and many customers are now adopting the talent experience methodology and approach. And irrespective of the sector that you may be operating in, it's definitely essential now, I think, to consider much more unified platforms and infrastructure support to be able to deliver this new, more unified experience. So just a quick reminder, have a look at that book, The Exponential Age. Have another look at this book called The Next Rules of Work. It's more of a blueprint on how an HR function as a whole can adapt and be responsive to this new highly uncertain environment that we operate in, and to deliver that effectively. So it acts as a bit of a blueprint to move from classical to jazz, is another way of putting it. So thank you for your attention. I will leave that here. You can contact me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to the team at Totara on totara.community and engage with other learning professionals who are very actively responding to this challenge about building a unified talent experience. So thank you for your attention.